All right, today's November 9th, 2019. This is Dan Kerr. We're at the Petworth Library. Could you tell me your name?
My name is Antonio Hernandez.
Excellent. And do we have permission to record this interview?
Yes.
Excellent. So could you tell us how long you've lived in the neighborhood, or if you have lived in the neighborhood?
I don't live in the neighborhood currently, but I was born and raised in the area, so from when I was born and up into the age of about 12, I lived here. So I lived on Irving Street, then I also lived over there in New Hampshire Avenue.
Oh, excellent. And what was the neighborhood like while you were growing up?
I think it was pretty just regular, lower to middle class neighborhood. It wasn't like how it is now. I went to a couple elementary schools. I went to Petworth Elementary, which I don't know if it's still open. I went to Bruce Monroe Elementary. Also went to Parkview Elementary. So I remember always, any of those schools, I always walked to school. So I just remember a lot of corner stores, a lot of carryouts, taking the bus everywhere. I remember when the Petworth Metro was open, and that was like a big boom to the area. But I was young, so I didn't really foresee what the neighborhood would be. All the changes that would happen. You don't think about that when you're young, you just think that's your neighborhood, that's what you see. But I remember, I remember coming to the library a lot. Actually, I came to this library a lot.
And how has the neighborhood changed since?
You see a lot of people who want to come here, I think, which is kind of interesting. I think before it wasn't seen as a place as like a destination, as somewhere that people just want to come. People come to either just like the neighborhood before, or they're just affordable. It was just kind of, you chose based on not based on like the cool factor of the neighborhood, just based on like proximity to work and where you could find a place. But I think now that's changed. I think you're seeing here what you've seen in a lot of other neighborhoods, the stratification between class, the younger professionals coming in. You see a lot of the houses which are being converted into either those weird apartments that are like having 10 apartments in one house, where like they'll convert 2 houses and make it into an apartment complex, which is really interesting. But there's some good things, I think. You have places to go. I remember I had not been here for a while when I was in school, and it came back really for the first time, maybe 6 years ago, to Georgia Avenue, so right around where the Metro is, and I saw like there was, different coffee shops and bars, which is cool, like around the Safeway area by the Metro. So I think there's some good things. I think for a period there was like a reduction in crime. So you saw like there was more opportunity. But you also see more people either getting pushed out, or people not necessarily pushed out, but people getting offers that maybe they can't really refuse, like a sum of money to sell their house, and it may be not what it's really valued at now. So you see there's a lot of things that were happening.
Mm-hmm. And so when you were growing up, what happened to a lot of your friends? Are they in the area? Or they moved out? Or
pretty much when I moved out, I kind of just lost contact. I know a couple, actually a good childhood friend actually moved out to Montgomery County, like farther out, like Germantown, which is pretty far out in Montgomery County. But when I did keep in touch with them, like a lot of them did kind of just stay around the neighborhood. So this was around 1999. So I left at the start of middle school. So when I started middle school in Prince George's County. And then we moved just for the issues of schooling and space and affordability.
And what were the perceptions of the school what were your experiences with the school when you were here?
I mean, I think mine were pretty good. I think I had some unique things. Like I remember we went to, I believe it was Petworth or Parkview, one of the two schools. I remember doing things like having In addition to a spelling bee, they would do things like have a Black History bee. And a lot of things that I thought were the norm weren't the norm. Like I was, the majority of the schools were Black. And so you had a few Hispanic students. English is my first language, so I didn't have to go through ESOL, but I know there were several students who were Hispanic who did like ESOL and everything like that for them. So you had I think a interesting experience having in some ways, and it depended on the teacher, but in some ways having like a Afrocentric curriculum. Like learning about Kwanzaa in depth, like watching Roots in elementary school. The Black History bee. And that was a big thing, and I think I still have like the jacket from that. I can't fit it obviously because I got it when I was like 9. But I remember just having that experience, which I think it kind of impacted how I see the world. And then when you get older, you interact with different people from different towns, different cities. They didn't have that. They didn't watch Roots in elementary school. They didn't have that focus on like Black history and like a Black curriculum, Black-centered curriculum. At least for that part, besides math and writing and things like that.
That's terrific. And what about your neighbors? Have you walked around on that street that you grew up on? Are any of them still around?
I don't think so. I know some people left. I walked down the street. I know the house is still there. The house on New Hampshire Avenue is probably... it was sold to like a family member, and I think they sold it. But I remember at least seeing the outside. I think it was probably bought and like fixed up. So it looks nice from the outside, the facade at least.
And what prompted your parents to move?
Yeah, like I said, it was just they wanted to just more opportunities for better schooling for me.
Yeah.
And then eventually, my mom figured like the best way for her to move to being a homeowner was to move out of Prince George's County at the time. So this was, like I said, around 99, 2000.
That's good. So what's your, with all that said, what would you say your analysis of gentrification is?
I think it's complex. I think you can't stop it. For the most part, I think there are things you can do to help mitigate the effects or the negative effects. Some communities have done that. Like there's communities that have petitioned or mobilized against things like chain stores coming in. I do think it creates not necessarily division, but it changes the community, and sometimes there's communities that are like tight-knit and neighbors know each other. But oftentimes I've found that when communities kind of just spring up and a lot of people who don't know each other kind of just move in, you don't necessarily have that community forming. My girlfriend actually lives up Georgia Avenue, Illinois. I remember seeing her in this like renovated complex, and I asked her like, do you know your neighbors, in your building or on the street? And they're like, no. And I don't think her neighbors know each other anyway. So you don't have that sense of community, and like there are other communities, for instance, that'll have like block parties, or at least you'll know your neighbor. But it's different. A lot of them don't have families either. So you don't have those opportunities for neighbors to come together for that common thing, like both having children. So, maybe watching someone's child on the street or, things like that. So you don't have that sense of community. I just think it's complex. I think some things are good. I think people cite things like I've said, like new businesses or new opportunities coming up, but sometimes there aren't always the best or most needed. We don't always need low-wage service industry jobs for the most part. And it can get complicated just politically and financially. But otherwise, I think it's complex. It's just kind of like a speeding truck, no pun intended, that kind of just barreling down. And I think there needs to be ways to there's speed bumps or stop signs or kind of just pushing that analogy further, crosswalks for people to kind of cross, I don't know, I think it's just very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. I like that. So any other thoughts you want to leave us with today?
I would say that I think that it's just very interesting to see. Like I said, I think I want to be able to go back and be older at that time and see and have that perspective of what the neighborhood was like, Because like I said, when I was just a kid, and I remember just like going around to my friends. So I had friends in the neighborhood, so around the corner from me. And that didn't really actually happen again until I was in like college in a dorm. So when we moved out to PG County, it's bigger. We moved to like a sprawling apartment complex. So we did lose a little bit of the sense of that community of walking around. So one of the things I do think I would appreciate now more as an adult would be walkability, and the public transit. I think people rag on the metro, of course, but buses are a big thing. Buses don't run as much or as well in Prince George's County. So that's one thing that I would say that I think that's like one advantage, and I think people are talking more about now, like walkability and things like that. But that's one thing that I really appreciate about neighborhoods like this, and just proximity to everything. And we will always take the bus either downtown, or you can even just take the bus straight up to go to Silver Spring, and just go elsewhere along the way. It's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.